Rajyavardhan Rathore says that the country today needs political soldiers. On the buck stops here today, we now look at the emergence of the Fauji voter and in some cases, the Fauji Neta. Is this a development that should be welcomed? Are soldiers finally getting a voice in the political system with politicians courting soldiers long neglected? Joining us now from Chandigarh tonight is former Army Chief General VP Malik. Also joining us is somebody who has been associated with the ex-servicemen's movement. We're joined by Major General Satbir Singh from Gurgaon tonight. General Malik, let me start with you. Rajyavardhan Rathore was of course just an illustration, I think, of a wider phenomenon that we're seeing. Whether it's Narendra Modi or Arvind Kejriwal, we're actually seeing ex-servicemen being courted by netas. Now, the fact of the matter is that this is a sizable community. Soldiers in the armed forces themselves at any given time are a huge community. Yet they've never really traditionally had a voice in the political system, mostly because it's been very important to keep the military apolitical. What do you make of this development, both of servicemen being courted and in some cases former soldiers turning to politics?
Barkha, firstly, let me assure you that the military today is apolitical. People in uniform are apolitical, and they will remain apolitical knowing their discipline. Also, I think the responsibility is known to all ex-servicemen also. They don't want the man in uniform to get politicized. But having said that, let me share a few facts with you. Today there are about 14 lakhs soldiers. 50,000 of them retire every year. And there's a huge number which is of the ex-servicemen. What has happened, incidentally, all political parties have had ex-servicemen cell for a long time. Yeah. What has happened, unfortunately, is that the political leaders have not paid much attention to the grievances and to the welfare of the ex-servicemen in particular, and even certain aspects which are close to the military. And similarly, the ex-servicemen themselves did not organize themselves properly. Now what has happened is that these grievances have got accumulated, and that is what has made a very large number of ex-servicemen vocal, very aggressive, and they have now started voicing, and they have started getting close to the political parties.
Yes.
I think the political leadership should have realized this. And personally, I feel that ex-servicemen joining any political party, there is nothing wrong. There have been some very good political leaders, not only in India, but abroad also, of the ex-servicemen making good political leaders. But I'm apolitical, and I continue to be apolitical for my own reasons.
Yes.
But this is a phenomena which was coming, which should have been seen by the political parties.
Yes,
and now they will remain vocal, they will remain organized to ask for what is their legitimate due.
General Malik, you make a very good point about the fact that this was coming because it's been the soldiers have been ignored for so long, and the ex-servicemen cells in most political parties have never been taken seriously. But General Malik, before I go to General Satbir Singh, I want to quote to you what Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw said so famously about how little politicians understood the military. And this is actually in good humor, but it's also so true. And let's just bring this graphic up. And Sam Manekshaw on the military knowledge of politicians said, "I wonder whether those of our political masters who have been put in charge of the defense of the country can distinguish a mortar from a mortar, a gun from a howitzer, a guerrilla from a gorilla, although a great many resemble the latter." Now, of course, he said this with his trademark wit, General Malik, but the fact of the matter is, how do you find the balance between keeping the military apolitical, but more and more ex-servicemen wanting to find a voice in the political system?
Look, it's a question of being disciplined. Armed forces have been disciplined, will remain disciplined, and when they are told that they are not to be politicized, they will remain apolitical. I have no doubt about it. But not only in our democracy, but all over the world, people, when they leave the armed forces, some of them, they join the political parties and
yes.
They get into politics. So there is nothing wrong with it. Ours is not a very different democracy.
Okay.
The point, of course, Field Marshal was on his humor best when he mentioned all that. Today's situation hasn't improved very much, let me tell you that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to use that same joke, but there is hardly any knowledge, awareness of the armed forces soldiers and what they have to go through, what they suffer, what is their due. It is still much lacking amongst our political leaders.